Hello, Happy New Year. I hope you're all doing really well. Ahead of my next 6-week Thursday night yoga course, Back to Basics, which will run 6:30 till 7:30 p.m. from the 7th of Jan until the 11th of Feb, I'm going to theme this course around the 5 yamas. Those of you who have done my 6-week courses before, particularly the Thursday nights, you'll know that I like to choose an overall theme for the entire 6 weeks. It's still a physical-based yoga class. We'll still be doing yoga postures in line with our breath. There'll still be all the wonderful benefits of strengthening and toning the body, relaxing the mind. But I like to just kind of drop in a little bit of the yoga philosophy or the context or the history, just to give us a greater understanding of kind of what yoga in its entirety is, alongside the physical practice. This 6-week course starting in January is going to be themed around the 5 yamas, and these are some of the core principles of Ashtanga yoga, or the 8 limbs yoga as outlined by Patanjali. Ahead of beginning the course, I invite you to watch this video. It's just going to give you a bit more context behind the yamas and kind of Patanjali, and give you a bit more of that historical context that I wanted to give you in video form before the course begins, rather than kind of overload you with verbal content when we get to the first class. We'll dive deeper into each of the 5 yamas. In fact, each week we'll focus on one of the yamas themselves. I'll drop it in at the beginning, and then I'll theme the physical postures around that idea, that quality. But to kind of understand what the yamas are and where they come from, I really encourage you to watch this video just to give you a bit more of that philosophical context. So Patanjali is the name of a sage who is credited with writing the Yoga Sutras, and this is believed to be the first and the oldest document of what yoga is. Very little is known about Patanjali. In line with most historical figures of greatness, it is assumed that Patanjali is a man, is a he, but there's no hard and fast evidence for that. There's no hard and fast evidence that he or they were one person. It might have been a collective of people who wrote down the Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutras are 196 short phrases, and they really refer to the holistic philosophical practice of yoga. There's no postures in the Yoga Sutras. There's no how-to guide, a down dog, how to do a cobra. It's not about that physical practice. It's about that philosophy, that mental state, that mental awareness. Within the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali outlines the Ashtanga yoga, or the 8 limbs. Ashta meaning 8, anga meaning limbs or constituent parts. This can kind of be thought of like a tree. If we have the image of a beautiful big tree where the trunk itself is yoga, and then each of these limbs is like a branch coming off that tree. So they all form kind of this one holistic understanding of yoga, each as important as the next to kind of the practice of yoga. The 8 limbs of yoga are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. The first limb, yama, includes 5 principles that support a life that is good to others and the environment around us. And it's these 5 limbs that we'll be focusing on through this 6-week course. The second refers to the 5 niyamas, and these are qualities that can help you be even better to yourself. If we think of the yamas as being the way we interact with the world around us, the niyamas are a more personal reflection of how we can kind of align these qualities internally, inside. The third limb is asana, so that is the physical practice of yoga. And I think it's interesting to note that that's number 3 in Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. I think for most people, myself included, I came to yoga because I wanted that physical, those physical benefits. I wanted to strengthen, to tone, I wanted to get more flexible, and I didn't know anything about the yamas or the niyamas until I probably did my teacher training. So I think it's interesting the West has kind of spotlighted limb number 3, and it's why I kind of wanted to bring us back to basics and introduce the yamas. Even if it's the beginning of your yoga journey, I think it's nice to integrate some of that more philosophical understanding into the physical practice that you're doing. For those who've done classes with me before, you might have heard me explain that asana literally means a steady and comfortable seat. It doesn't mean putting your feet behind your head. It doesn't mean standing on your hands. It doesn't mean doing the full splits. And although those things can be accessible to you through a regular yoga practice, if coming into the full splits is not steady or comfortable, then I would argue it's not yoga. It's gymnastics, it's a physical form, that's all great. But when we can come into our body and we can come into these poses and make them steady and comfortable, then we're really practicing asana. We're practicing the physical form of yoga. The fourth limb is pranayama. This refers to breath work, harnessing the power of our breath, being aligned, being in tune, and controlling that breath in a way that supports our energy, lifts us up and supports our practice. The word prana can be translated as energy, vital life force, or spirit. And in many traditions, including traditional Chinese medicine, qi, the word for breath, is the same as the word for spirit, energy, or life force. And I think our breath can really be a gateway into this holistic, integrated way of living. Limb 5, pratyahara, is withdrawal of the senses and turning your focus inwards. So really coming into that internal gaze, coming into union with yourself. Dharana, limb 6, is concentration, really focusing, steadying the mind on one specific point, really learning to tune in to that and tune out of everything else, all those other distractions. Harder and harder, I think, as we come into this smartphone existence. And then limb 7, dhyana, practice of true meditation, contemplation of what is. And I think that all of the above are preparation for this process. So we've got the yamas and the niyamas, which are looking outwards. They're our relationship with the world around us and how we relate and interact. Asana, the whole purpose of kind of all of that complex asana physical practice is so that we can come and sit in sukhasana, in easy pose, and we can meditate, we can be still for as long as it takes. All the kind of complex asana that's been built and developed since the Yoga Sutras, I think just helps us to come and sit still, removing tight hips, tight hamstrings. So we've prepared the body through asana, we've prepared the breath, we've got that control of the breath through pranayama practices. And then the final two, pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses, we start to bring everything back inside. Dharana, concentration, leading us to dhyana, meditation. And then finally, we come to the state of samadhi, the state of being completely at one with the divine. Some yogis think of this as kind of transcendence. Reaching that state of samadhi, we might withdraw from this mundane, worldly existence and be at one with the spirit. My yoga teacher in India, Saji, who was based in Kerala, worked and taught yoga all his life, and his kind of dream and his goal was to one day journey to the Himalayas and kind of come to this final kind of place of samadhi and being with the divine spirit. However you translate that, it might be being with yourself, it might be being with a higher power that you relate to. But yeah, stepping away from the mundane. I'd like to just read a little bit from this fantastic book, The Language of Yin by Gabrielle Harris, which just outlines a little bit the 8 limbs for us. The 8 limbs are like branches of a tree. Each limb is separate, but they are all connected via the roots and the trunk. They were designed to help alleviate our suffering by remembering our essence or true nature, and that in our heart we are infinite love and perfection. The first 2 branches, the yamas and niyamas, are listed first as the most important acts we can do to live a life that is harmonious and at peace. They are an ethical framework for soulful living and a guide to navigating the challenges that arise as we walk on our paths. Following these guidelines helps us pay attention to how we are and how we interact with others. When things are difficult, they provide practical ways in which we can nudge ourselves in the right direction. And by doing this, we are less likely to get caught up in the small battles we have each day with ourselves and the world around us. Without these first 2 steps, our spiritual practice has no roots or solid foundation to grow on. So we'll be looking over the first 5 weeks at each of the 5 yamas in turn. Ahimsa, non-violence. Satya, truth. Asteya, non-stealing. Brahmacharya, wise use of our energy. Aparigraha, not holding on too tightly to material goods, being able to move with ease with the flow of life. And then week 6 will be an integration session where we'll kind of revisit all of those core principles. As I said, this isn't a philosophy course, it is a physical asana-based yoga practice. So you can expect 5 minutes or so of check-in and an introduction to the theme, followed by a physical movement-based flow. There'll be some introduction into the sun salutations, a great system for kind of toning and strengthening tip to toe, great for getting the whole body moving. It's fantastic for spinal health. There are opportunities to advance the sun salutations by making it more powerful practice, or there's always opportunities to modify and make it more gentle and suit your body. The first couple of weeks I'm going to look at some movements and sequences that are great for our digestive system. If you're anything like me, I think after Christmas there's often a lot I feel like I need to digest, and on an emotional level I think there's lots of digesting of 2020 that still needs to happen. So we'll be looking at kind of the physical processes of digestion, a little bit of core connection and strength that's ultimately going to support your yoga practice or any of your other physical practices, getting that really good connection to a strong core. And then as it's an evening class, we'll end with a slightly longer stretch, wind down on the floor, and then time spent in Shavasana, which is final relaxation pose, just with an introduction to the yamas kind of weaved in to the physical flow that we'll be going through. So I really hope it was helpful, having a little bit of extra background. I know when you first start to come to the yoga philosophy, it can seem very overwhelming and a whole new world, which is why it's really a passion of mine to start to share it in an accessible way through the physical form of yoga. Always open if you have any questions. If you haven't signed up for the course yet, there's still a few spaces, so do let me know. And I'll just give a shout out to these 2 brilliant books that really helped me prep for this short video. So The Language of Yin by Gabrielle Harris and Light on Ashtanga Yoga by BKS Iyengar. All right, thanks very much. Hope to see you soon.